Hello, Life Groups. Welcome back this week, and thank you so much for gathering. We are continuing in our Running on Empty series, and in this series, we've covered a lot of things that leave us feeling empty, right? Those things that just drain us. And yes, they are at times difficult to talk about, but I don't know about you, but I am so grateful for a church that confronts these real-life issues instead of sweeping them under the rug. So today, we're talking about loneliness. And I think if we were to take a poll of everyone in your life group or even everyone in our church, there are many of us that would admit that we are lonely. And loneliness can be caused by a lot of things, right? Loneliness can be caused by loss and pain. And whether it's losing a loved one or dealing with a diagnosis and you feel like you're the only one that understands what's happening and no one else could possibly understand what you're going through, or maybe it's an unhealthy marriage or a severed relationship, or inevitably there are some people that just don't have anyone to connect with. No connections to family or friends or coworkers. They are simply lonely. And the list of reasons why we're lonely can go on and on. One of the beautiful things that I find about Scripture is the constant reminder that we're never alone. We look at these people we consider to be spiritual giants, and we see that they struggled with the same things that we do. People like David, who Scripture calls a man after God's own heart. And in Psalm 25, it starts by praising God, but David is also struggling with the loss that he suffered. And he says, "Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted." David was suffering, and he had pain which caused his loneliness. And there were two other things that Pastor Brandt talked about this past weekend that contribute to loneliness. The first one was sin. Sin causes separation between us and God, and there are times that sin causes separation between us and others. And because God cannot be in the presence of sin, when Jesus on the cross took on the sin of the world, took on your sin and my sin, God had to turn his back on his own son, and to the point that Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" On the opposite side of this spectrum from sin, we have holiness. And sometimes holiness can cause loneliness. Why? Because as you've chosen to grow in your faith, there are sometimes that relationships change as a result of our maturing in our faith. Priorities change, and holiness can cause loneliness at times. All of this leads us to the solution. The fix for loneliness is deep relationships with God and with his people. And yes, on the surface, that seems really basic. But a growing relationship with Jesus will ensure that you never feel abandoned by God. And loneliness can be replaced with the assurance of his presence. We've been created for relationships as well, both vertical relationships with God and a horizontal relationship with others. And we're created for community. And that's why we put such an emphasis on life groups, doing life together and connecting. And yes, it goes without saying that we're all imperfect people, but we're all imperfect people desiring to follow a perfect God. We're all in together following Jesus, and because of that, you are never alone. Enjoy your discussion today.